Good morning and thank you for being here. My name is Butch Shanks. I have the honor of serving as the fire chief for the St. Paul Fire Department. On behalf of our department, welcome to Station 1. I want to extend a special welcome to our union leaders who advocate tirelessly for the firefighters across the nation. We have IFF Local 21 President Kyle Thornburg here, IFF Local President 82 Mark Lakoski here, and Minnesota Professional Firefighter President Scott Vadnais. You know, your work is deeply appreciated, so thank you. Julie Paidar, wife of fallen Fire Captain Mike Paidar. You know, your continued dedication is the reason we're here today, and I just want to say welcome and thank you for all your work you're doing. Mayor Melvin Carter, thank you for never wavering in declaring firefighter illness, such as cancer, as a line-of-duty injury. And tragically, sometimes those are line-of-duty deaths. Mayor Carter has never wavered on accepting those claims and calling them out intentionally as a job-related injury or death. So thank you so much. Thank you. And to Senator Amy Klobuchar, you know, we met back in late June, early July. You know, you made it clear that your work was not finished on this act. You know, the passion you showed that day and your continued fight to secure benefits for firefighters and for the families who have lost loved ones in the line of duty, it's just an inspiration. You know, coming off the heels of 9/11 yesterday, and what we've said from day one of 9/11 is we'll never forget. And this act is very intentional on we will never forget. So thank you. You know, the St. Paul Fire Department, we're built on proud traditions of service and sacrifice. And we're doing everything we can to prevent cancer or diagnose the women and men of our fire department early on with cancer. Right now, going on next door is cancer screenings to determine if we can find it early enough that we can provide treatment for our people. But the fact remains that over 70% of line-of-duty deaths in our profession are cancer-related. And so no matter what I shouldn't say no matter what we're doing our best to call it out and diagnose early on, but the fact remains that the chances are that, very likely some of our folks can get cancer. And so, Captain Paidar's passing, it's a solemn reminder that service-related illnesses are line-of-duty tragedies. And so, the Honoring Our Fallen Heroes Act it's about ensuring the families left behind receive the recognition and support they deserve. We always say, I've heard everyone here say that families also serve, right? We thank us for our service, but families also serve. And this act intentionally calls out and recognizes and provides benefits to the families that serve alongside of all of us that serve. So thank you. Now it's my honor to introduce one of the champions for not just this act and just firefighters, but for the fire profession in general, our Honorable Mayor Melvin Carter.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Melvin. Well, thank you, Chief. I appreciate that. It's an honor to be here this morning. Senator, thank you for your championship of this work. It really means a lot to us to know that we have someone who is not just in Washington, D.C., but who is really representing us in Washington, D.C., and taking the concerns of our community members and our firefighters to Washington, D.C. with us. I'm always proud to stand behind you, to stand with you, and we appreciate your leadership on behalf of Minnesota and the entire country. To all of our firefighters here, thank you so much. The union leaders here, thank you all so much for your willingness to operate as true heroes in our community. Who put yourselves in harm's way. The chief mentioned families serving, and I'm one of those family members. Many of you know that my father is a retired St. Paul police officer, and let me tell you, I was sure every day he went to work that there was something on a piece of paper that was a job description. For me, the number one job duty of our emergency responders is to keep yourselves safe, is to keep yourselves healthy, and to hug and kiss your children and family at the end of the day. And that's what this is about. Chief Vinks, I want to thank you for hosting us. Thank you for being your voice in this work. And of course, Julie, I'm honored to be with you again to celebrate Mike's life and legacy And as you share your story, your courage and your strength is incredible to us all, and we all draw inspiration from you as Mike lives on through you. So thank you very much. Yesterday was the 24th anniversary of 9/11. When 343 firefighters made the ultimate sacrifice responding to the World Trade Center attacks. And today, 11,000 active and retired FDNY members have been diagnosed with at least one World Trade Center-related disease. Over 3,500 are suffering from cancer. It's a stark reminder that the sacrifices of our first responders continue long after the smoke has cleared. A third-generation firefighter, Captain Paidar, followed in the footsteps of his father and his grandfather. He wore that uniform with pride and courage and was a firefighter in every sense of the word. Captain Paidar showed up, shift after shift, undaunted by the dangers of this job. He battled fires, responded to emergencies, and carried others to safety without hesitation. But the risks he faced did not end when the flames went out. He was diagnosed with an aggressive form of acute myeloid leukemia and passed August 26, 2020, after a 6-month battle. 5 years ago last month, we lost a father, a husband, a son, a brother, a teammate, and a friend. We lost a man whose commitment to serving others was matched only by his love for his family and his fellow firefighters. His legacy will forever be etched into the story of our city, our state, our nation. Before his death, cancer was not considered a line of duty death, which shut out families who literally gave their all to our communities, to our country, shut them out from federal supports. Even though firefighters face a 9% higher risk of being diagnosed with cancer and a 14% higher risk of dying from cancer. Through the steadfast advocacy of Local 21 and the entire Paidar family, Captain Paidar became the first firefighter in Minnesota to be awarded the Public Safety Officer Death Benefit after dying of occupational cancer. That decision was historic because it marked the very first time our nation officially recognized what firefighters have known for decades. The cancer caused by this work is in line of duty death, regardless of when it happens. This recognition set a precedent for every firefighter and every family who may one day face the same heartbreaking reality. The Bipartisan Fallen Heroes Act expands the Public Safety Officer Death Benefit to cover firefighters who die from job-related cancers. And it goes a step further, making sure that safeguarding our firefighters' health is our priority. That's why we've invested in saunas in our fire stations. That's why we purchased the state's first fully electric fire trucks. That's why we're deploying new equipment that reduces exposure to carcinogens and new equipment to wash our uniforms and everything else that we are doing. Because fulfilling the legacy of Captain Paidar means leading the way in protecting those who protect us. And with that, I want to say thank you and welcome again, and thank you for your leadership to our Senator, U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Mayor, and thank you to all of you. I was saying I got up at 3 a.m. Minnesota time to get the 6 a.m. flight out of Washington. Got here because I really wanted to make this case now. The timing is really important because not only the obvious with 9/11 and that anniversary and the memory of all the firefighters running to the building and all that we lost. I actually most remember that day. We all remember where we were. I dropped my daughter. She was just starting school, off at school, and went over to one of the moms of one of her friends to drop off like a PTA check. And the mom was watching the TV and the tower collapsed, and she said, my husband's best friend is a firefighter in New York. And she saw the firefighters. He lost his life in that fire. And that's what, when I always think about that, her saying that, never ever thinking that people would lose so many loved ones. And that happened that day. The other reason it is so timely is that we now know more and more and more about what caused these illnesses, not only from 9/11, but what our military, what our troops have been seeing when they're stationed next to burn pits, and then, of course, what our firefighters right here at home are experiencing. And the final reason it's timely is that we have a bill in front of us, the national security bill, that once again in the Senate it is a incredible jigsaw puzzle of trying to get everyone on. Someone will be for a bill, then they're against it. But we have, thanks to Julie's work and so many of the other families across the nation, added more and more sponsors. Senator Kramer and I, the Republican from North Dakota, lead the bill, and we've added more and more sponsors. We've cleared it through the Judiciary Committee, which is not an easy thing to do. Just to give you a sense of it, the Judiciary Committee goes from like Cory Booker to Josh Hawley, okay? We got it through that, and now we have both Senator Thune, the majority leader, and Senator Schumer, the minority leader, favoring the bill and asking that it be put on the defense bill. So that's where we are right now. If one or two of them object, then we're going to have to try to find another vehicle that might be easier, but that's what we're doing right now. I want to thank these incredible local fire leaders that are with us, Assistant Chief Melquist. I mentioned Julie. I'll talk about her a little later. We have got President Kyle Thornburg with us. We have Mark Lukowski from the Minneapolis Local 82 president with us. Scott Vadnais is with us from Minnesota Professional Firefighters and many other leaders. So I want to thank St. Paul firefighters in particular. They've always been the most visible face of Minnesota firefighters. Don't tell that to Minneapolis. Don't tell them. Don't. Woo. When it comes to advocating for good policy and coming to Washington and making the case. I know last year, St. Paul firefighters, Mayor, responded to 50,000 calls, wow, protecting people, homes, and businesses from fires, keeping people safe. Early Wednesday morning, just this week, the St. Paul Fire Department responded to a fire at a vacant duplex in the Railroad Island neighborhood. When firefighters arrived, flames had engulfed multiple floors. One firefighter was hospitalized. Fortunately, the injuries were minor, but it is another reminder of the sacrifices firefighters are willing to make. Every single day, you are called to put your lives on the line to save others. You can't teach that kind of heroism. And before I go on, speaking of heroism, I do want to thank the first responders and all those at the scene of the horrific murder in Utah. Our thoughts, of course, and prayers are with the family of Charlie Kirk. And it is, maybe if you guys have one question on that, we can talk about it later. But it has been, of course, for us in Minnesota, really difficult as we think back to our summer, which included losing those little kids in the church, which included the assassination of Melissa Hortman and her husband and the shooting of Senator Hoffman. And when you think about, are there heroes in these stories? There's heroes in every story. There are heroes in every fire, because people have literally signed up to put their own lives at risk for ours. There's heroes of those kids in that church and the police that ran into that scene and saved so many lives. The medics, the nurse that went into the MRI machine with the little kid, all of those things. That's what we think about when we think about heroes. It's uncommon selflessness, courage, and patriotism. So let's talk about the bill. It's the least we can do, the honoring our Fallen Heroes Act. I mentioned I got Senator Kramer to lead the bill with me, but this bill was truly inspired not by politicians, but by the late St. Paul Fire Captain Mike Paidar. The mayor talked about the captain, and I saw a few little tears in some of the eyes of the people here that actually worked with him and knew him so much better than I did, or those of us that talk about his memory in Washington. But a 15-year career first with Maple Grove Fire Department, then moves over to St. Paul, 1,600 fire runs, 4,800 EMT runs. And on the job, like so many of our firefighters, he gets exposed to toxic substances, gets acute myeloid leukemia, as the mayor explained, and then just 6 months later, leaves behind Julie and Matthew and Megan. but they weren't really left behind because they kind of then took the lead in the hardest of circumstances, in that they led the charge, not only in the state to change that law, and not only for their family, but for so many, sadly, that will follow in their footsteps, but now is a model for what we can do federally. And I want to thank the union, for IAFF Local 21, for making this such a priority. That's how I first heard about this bill, and they came to me with the idea, and then all of a sudden the Nationals decided they would be helpful as well, and we really were able to get a lot of sponsors. So what the bill does is it ensures that firefighters and other emergency responders across the country who lose their lives to service-related cancers or become permanently and totally disabled as a result of them are eligible to receive benefits under what we call the Federal Public Safety Officer Benefits Program. Expanding the program to cover these illnesses honors the commitments that we've made. And it makes sure that if someone has, say, retired but then gets cancer, it's not like they're cut off at that point. Those were some of the issues that a lot of people around the country have been dealing with, where they actually get cancer, but then they say, well, we don't know what it's from. And we're able to make this a very broad definition because of what we've seen out in the field. As I mentioned, the bill now in the Senate has 58 co-sponsors, thanks to Julie. She probably talked to everyone. Okay, I talked to a few. And has the broad support of everyone from Bernie Sanders to Ted Cruz. Okay, you're welcome. And I will note it also built on the work that we did early on with the late Fire Lieutenant Brett Boss from Albert Lee and his family. And that's when we began this journey by creating a firefighter registry. And I co-sponsored that bill with a few others, but that actually was the beginning, because then we were able to show the facts, to show the numbers, so then we could make the case for these benefits. The Honoring Our Fallen Heroes Act is about recognizing that not all on-the-job injuries are immediately apparent, and that is one of the key things, as I noted. But it's also about honoring Mike's memory, and every firefighter, their family, should have the solace knowing the hard job that they've taken on, that there are people that are going to be there for them. So I want to thank you, and I think next up is Julie. That's what I thought. So I think I've given you an ample introduction, Julie. You're incredible force, not just in Minnesota, but nationally. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay.
I feel like I'm having a full moment here. Before Mike became a firefighter, he was actually on your side of the camera. He worked in the news, so I'm trying to remember what Mike would have done on that side.
So what did he do?
He was a photojournalist, so he had definitely had the height to get a good shot. So, just a little bit about Mike. You guys have heard so much about him already, but he passed. It was just 5 years ago. And so when Mike was diagnosed, it was Valentine's Day 2020, came out of the blue. We found out he had cancer, and it was acute myeloid leukemia, and we lost him 6 months later. During that time, Mike was in aggressive chemo regimen in the hospital. We thought we would be able to be out in 30 days, but what happened in those 30 days was this thing called COVID. Mike, I was able to see Mike for 21 days in a row, and then I got kicked out of the hospital. And after that, Mike spent another 50 days in the hospital, could not see his firefighter family, could not see us in person. And throughout that whole time, the words that Mike kept telling me was that no matter how bad it gets, somebody else has something worse going on. And through the whole 5 years, that has really resonated with me. Mike was always, anybody that worked with Mike knows he was always the king of one-liners. But he always said things and he always meant it. And I've taken that to heart. You ask, how can it be any worse than losing your husband? But as I've advocated across this country in support of the Honoring Our Fallen Heroes Act, I have met so many families with little kids that will never grow up to know their father or mother. And I have 2 children who were inspired by their father. They knew him for 20 and 22 years. So that's why I do what I do. I really feel that this is important to get this passed, because families that have stood by their firefighter, whether it was a career that answered the tones or they were volunteer and they were pulled out of their house during the middle of the night, the families love and support what their spouse does. And so if we can get anything passed to help those families, that's why it's important to me. So I just want to thank, again, in person, Senator Klobuchar. She has been an amazing model for so many of the families that I've met across this country. And she did it with grace. She introduced this in honor of Mike, but she also did it bipartisan. She reached across the river to Senator Kramer, and together they introduced this. And I think that speaks a lot about you. And our firefighters, as you guys know, they go out, they don't care what you do for a living, they don't care where you live, they don't care what you do for a job, just like they don't care what, they don't judge. And that's why I think your bipartisan is, to me, means a lot. So I just want to say thank you.
Okay, thanks, Julie. Thank you. All right. I did want to clarify that for the mayor that across the river to Julie and me means the Red River, not the Mississippi. Sorry.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jeremiah Melquist. I'm the Assistant Chief of Operations, and I'm a 25-year veteran of the St. Paul Fire Department. We're here today to honor the memory of Captain Paidar, whose diagnosis and tragic passing is a story far too common among firefighters. His loss reminds us that the dangers we face don't end when the fire is put out. Last year, our department offered voluntary enhanced cancer screenings, just like the ones happening next door right now. I'll admit, like many of us, I was hesitant to go. I told myself, I feel fine, I'm healthy. But at the encouragement of another firefighter, I decided to get screened. Not long after, I was told that some abnormal cells had been detected. Further testing thankfully showed that they had not developed into cancer. But that moment was sobering. I couldn't help but think, what if I hadn't gone? What if I listened to my own stubbornness and skipped the screening? This experience changed the way I look at my own health and the health of my brothers and sisters in the fire service. These screenings are more than a precaution, they're a lifeline. They give us a chance to be proactive with our health and to catch problems early before they take away years from our lives and time from our families. On behalf of myself, and I believe I can speak for many firefighters and their families, we are genuinely grateful these screenings are available and that benefits exist for those who need them. They represent hope, prevention, and support for the people who give everything to protect our communities. If there's one message I want to leave with today, it's this. Don't wait until you feel something is wrong. Take advantage of the resources available and make your own health and wellness a priority. It could save your life. Thank you. And with that, I want to bring back our amazing Senator, Senator Klobuchar, to the podium.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. All right. Excellent. Anyone else? Yeah, maybe anything? Hi.
Just clarify, so right now, it sounds like the benefits are available, it's just making them available to more people because they're capturing more people who otherwise wouldn't fall under that, maybe perhaps more rigid definition of what a
Right.
service-related injury.
Exactly. So there is a program already in place, but it is very narrow, and it covers narrow from our purposes. It did help a lot of people after 9/11. It was 9/11 related cancer, so you can imagine. So it covers those, which of course we should have covered. But then it covers COVID, PTSD related suicides. It has this kind of group of them. And so what this does is just makes it very clear that this covers various kinds of cancers that would be related to exposure from going into these buildings. And it really fixes a gap that is in the program now. Right, and also capturing them after they've left. So if they're on active duty, they're going to be covered in their benefits by health care or different things, but some of them retire and then they get the very same kind of cancer that someone had before that doesn't get covered. So that's why, and it also covers, of course, people who are permanently disabled, as I mentioned, and it gives them support as well. So that's what it is. And it's a couple $100 million over 10 years. So we had find ways to pay for it, which we have.
What's the timeline for this potentially passing? It doesn't sound like it's an issue of getting Republican or Democratic support, but
Yeah, with 58, we're almost over the magic number of 60. That's my job, Julie said, when I get back. That means you are like foolproof over any kind of filibuster. So And that doesn't mean the other people don't support it, because we have 100 of us, right? So the goal is to we're working on this defense bill, which includes other security-related things, including officers, and have a number of things in that bill to help Minnesota with the hangar for the new planes that we're getting out with the 133rd and other things. But in that bill, we have amendments. So we're in a group of amendments, basically, that we're trying to get unanimous support for. It doesn't mean they'll all vote for the bill, but we have to get the amendment by them. So that's what we're trying. Other vehicles, if we can't get it on that, and the national firefighters have made this their number one and only priority on this bill. But if we don't get it on that, then we have the end of the year budget bill. There'll be other things that we would be able to try to attach it to. Because in the Senate, you usually don't vote on one thing at a time, because you have to get all 100 people to agree, like a volleyball team resolution, maybe. And then otherwise, you have to combine them. It's just the way our rules work. That'll be a really interesting tidbit for you guys to use on the news, I know. Okay. Okay, so you don't, it's just about do you have any questions of them, though, or Julie, or anything? Okay. Yeah, Mayor can stay up here, yeah, it's good. Okay, all right, yep.
Senator, the suspect in the shooting, the assassination of Charlie Kirk has been apprehended. You briefed on that, and I guess, can you speak to that tragedy?
Well, I really appreciate the work of law enforcement here on the local, state, and federal level. We all know the manhunt that we had in Minnesota for 44 hours to catch the assassin that killed Melissa Hortman and her husband, Bolter. And we know how heartbreaking that can be when you're close to finding him, or you got some kind of a perimeter and he got through. And then photos were released. If you remember in Bolter's case, the original photos had a mask, so you couldn't see who he was. But eventually, those photos were helpful, as was finding the car and figuring out who he was. You had the same kind of thing happen in Utah, where they eventually, oftentimes, this is from my old days in law enforcement, you try to find them before putting the photo out, because you don't want to let them know that you know what they look like. They were eventually able to get tips and figure out where he lived. He was someone who grew up in Utah. I don't know the details. I watched the press conference this morning like everyone else. And they were able to get him into custody, which is a relief for the people of that state and the country. This is clearly someone who is filled with hate and who was just made a decision that he was going to shoot down someone in the middle of a political rally. And I do think in general that it makes us think about, after seeing what happened to Melissa and Mark, where things are right now in our country. And I believe that there was a time in our politics where you could have decent disagreements and discussions about issues without it resulting in a murder, or without it resulting in the kind of day-to-day fury that you see online. And that sadly has triggered people who are clearly psychopaths to take a gun and kill people. And even the Annunciation shooting, while that did not involve political victims, instead it was 8 and 10-year-olds, there was a manifesto with clear anger, all-purpose, can't put a pin in the ideology. And I think instead of saying which side is this person on, because we've seen it right, we've seen it left, we saw the attempted assassination of President Trump, I think that the answer in the political realm lies in policy changes with security, sure, policy changes with guns, policy changes with what's online and what's allowed, and the misinformation and all of the vitriol. You can't police some of the speech, but when people are downright making things up, or they are using people's images, as happened to me a few months ago with this relatively silly AI video, but people thought it was real, that's other policy changes you can make. And then the bigger thing is not a policy change. You know, we've got to decide, is this a democracy that we want to keep being part of? And I think the answer is yes. I can't think of another country I'd rather live in. I was thinking, my mind drifted to the Vikings for some reason this weekend, and I loved J.J. McCarthy's words in the huddle when he said to them, well, and I'm paraphrasing, is there someplace else you'd rather be? And that's what I think about our country. It has always been imperfect, but it is this kind of discourse and anger and hate that is now triggering these psychopaths. We've always had assassinations in the past, but we've never seen such a rash of them consecutively from people who have different views and against politicians that have radically different views than each other, right? So the answer is, it must be in the hearts of people that are really flaming this. And a lot of it, again, I don't keep mention online, but a lot of this has a through line to things they've read online, and that we've got to change this. Or we're going to lose that incredibly unique American sense of having people who disagree with each other, sometimes adamantly, be able to have a discourse, hold events and rallies, and yes, even be friends.
Senator, on another topic, could you update us where we're at with the U.S. Attorney confirmation of Amy Klobuchar and St?
Sure.
Why do you support given his lack of prosecutorial experience?
Oh, well, Dan Rosen came out of a committee, kind of along the lines as we were talking about here, that Representative Emmer put together. And it had actually a former Minnesota Supreme Court justice that headed it up. He's very well respected. And they came out with 3 names. They went to the White House. Unlike what's happened in some states, Senator Smith and I felt that our process was worthy, that while he may not have had criminal experience, we have had other people in positions, county attorneys, U.S. attorneys that came from different experiences in Minnesota history who have done well. And so that alone would not be a reason that we would not have given the what we call blue slip to let Mr. Rosen go ahead. Right now, his nomination just came again through the Judiciary Committee this Thursday with most Democrat support. And then it'll be going to the floor very soon for a vote to the Senate floor or some kind of unanimous consideration or something like that because of that. Virginia is in the same, and I think there's a number of other states where there's been some Democratic support. I also want to commend the acting U.S. Attorney, Mr. Thompson, who has been just doing an incredible job in the hardest of circumstances. And he was also someone that I consulted with the administration. So, you know, sometimes you try your best and you put in good names, and they do a good job despite whatever disagreements you may have with the administration that's in power. I've supported every single U.S. attorney that we've had through Democratic and Republican presidents, including Erica from the last Trump administration. And if you can get to that point where you have an actual process and you get people that maybe wouldn't be your first choice, but come through an actual process that have credentials, I think you've got a better democracy, and it's a lot more support from law enforcement.
Senator, really quick, if I may ask you about, you mentioned the manifesto of the Minneapolis shooter. That was like pre-scheduled to launch on YouTube before this happened. I know you often criticize big tech companies that in these sorts of spaces. Is there something that Congress can do, or what are your thoughts about? Is there a way to pre-screen that, to know
Yeah.
that somebody's going to commit an act of violence before it happens?
You know, everyone thinks that just sounds impossible, but you think these are trillion-dollar, multi-trillion-dollar companies. They are making so much money off this content, and they make huge amounts of money when stuff goes viral in ads and the like, especially angry stuff. That does 5 times better than, you know, your posting about your, you know, I don't know, your mom's birthday or something, okay? So that is one of the issues here. So I do think they should be able to have a trigger and figure out when things are scary that are put on there and then try to tag it. I'd also like to see, and I do not know the details of the Charlie Kirk assassination and where the gun was from and all that stuff. But, you know, there are triggers in some of these things with age for assault weapons that could trigger more thorough background checks or more delays in purchase so you have more time to do the background checks, or some kind of assault weapon ban because, and again, it does not apply in the Kirk murder because that was not an assault weapon, but certainly in the Church case and in the Uvalde and Buffalo shootings, those were all, think about this, they had just turned 18 and they were looking on the web and they bought assault weapons when they were 18 years old on the web. So you wouldn't be able to catch all of these, but if you did something with age, if you did something better with background checks, nothing is going to solve all of it, that is for certain. But there are things you can do that are really smart, that don't hurt hunting in our state. That is, I always look at these things and think, do they hurt my Uncle Dick in the deer stand? They do not. And there are some really smart things we could do that would really take care of some of this. I don't know if you want to add anything, Mayor, on the gun front.
Happy to.
Yeah.
Happy to. We've shared our work with mayors across the state, and thank you, Senator, for that leadership at the federal level.
I saw what you were doing.
Yes, well, I appreciate that. Our work with mayors across the state will continue. We shared last week that we are going to be proposing 4 policies as city policy. 1, banning public possession of assault rifles. 2, banning binary triggers and some of the extended magazines that turn a regular handgun into a machine gun. 3, banning guns in our parks and recreation centers and libraries. And 4, the simple act of saying that every gun in our community has to have a serial number. Those 4 things, as we've talked to folks around the state, those 4 things share broad support from Minnesotans, frankly, as sort of a bare minimum standard of what can be done on guns. But they also are too much for our state legislator. By state law, we are preempted against enforcing those policies. And so we're going to continue to bring those forward. We're looking forward to we're working right now, and we'll look forward to sharing with you that other cities are joining us in that effort. And we have to have a major conversation in our city, in our state, about if those things are things that we Minnesotans, the vast majority of us in the metro area, and the vast majority of us in greater Minnesota, believe are bottom line standards that we can adhere to, and our state legislature actually outlaws them. That ought to be a conversation in and of itself. Thank you, Senator.
Okay, thank you. I think that's it. All right, thank you, everyone.